Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei x Grafiya part 2. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Let's start this video. All was well in the Haidu household. It was especially so for Issei Haidu and his newly acquired devil-made wife queen. To be more accurate, the cool beauty Grafiya Lucifuge was now his loyal lover, having fallen in love with everything about the young man, including his powerful nighttime strokes. As had been previously chronicled, Issei and Grafiya had found each other one fateful night, where their tempestuous lovemaking had shattered the barrier between mortal and devil, creating a new, licentious bond. As had already been chronicled, the couple would go on to live a happy life with children even. This new chronicle takes place quite a bit before then. It was just over a week since Issei had made Grafiya queen of his peerage, and neither lover had even known there was a child brewing inside Grafiya. Though she had an inkling, for she felt her magical energy being siphoned into something she hadn't remembered casting. And if it were not a parasite, she checked, then it was surely a baby. Thoughts of the sudden change in her life were quickly subsumed by her newfound desire to please her Issei above all else. This had the unfortunate, or fortunate, side effect of mixing with Grafiya's normal impishness, which had been hidden away after being subjected to Issei's impressive manhood. The result was a scheme taking root in her brain, magnified by the never-ending lust her body continued to breed in her without a care, stimulated as it was by Issei's entire being. Though she had her earlier misgivings about being passed over once Issei had found another woman, they had been mostly stifled by the hours of wild makeup afterward. The fact that she'd been made queen of his peerage lent credence to his declaration that he would always consider her first and foremost above all. Therefore, inspired by Issei's generosity and wishing to reward his selfless, though rapacious nature, Grafiya began to plan for perspective number 2 and number 3 and so on. Prospects came easily to mind as she plotted with a smile. There was no other more wonderful, more deserved, more appropriate place to worship her Issays together with her than her fellow devils. In particular, Venelana Gremory, her mother-in-law, was a beauty without comparison, who'd birthed the smart, powerful, and definitely beautiful Rias Gremory. She knew Venelana would positively glow if she could be convinced to become Issei's second. Her vast experience would then be a good tool to help supplement Grafiya's own Issei, allowing Issei to expand his influence and peerage beyond his wildest imaginations. After Venelana, then perhaps her lovely daughter. The draw mother and daughter in on a thoroughly sinful congress in bed would just about make Issei so very happy. Just thinking of Issei's happy expression was already making Grafiya, her mind becoming a purposeless lurry from which no rational thought would exude. She herself, forcing herself to focus. Fun would come later. Is sure to come later, as soon as Issei comes home from school. And much more fun would be had, for all, if Grafiya managed this successfully. But how would she accomplish it? It would be hard to fabricate a reason for Venelana to even visit the human world, let alone try to visit this particular mortal. Venelana was many things, but she was no fool. She'd suspect some sort of trickery from Grafiya was involved if the latter ever tried. Thus, Grafiya stewed on that problem for a good, long while. Then, she had the most wonderful idea. Sometime later, down in her mansion at Hell, she summoned some dear friends over for some tea. They came as she bid, for they were dear friends and all, and also had been drawn by something Grafiya had proposed. The tea party was markedly peculiar, as the attitudes of each of those who'd come seemed rather out of place for someone only attending a tea party. For example, all their faces, even Grafiya, were unnaturally flushed red, as if they'd imbibed some alcoholic substance. Furthermore, the ladies invited to the party could not stop fidgeting in their seats, as if they were sitting on something uncomfortable. They could not stop shifting their dresses and wiping themselves discreetly, as if they felt some undetectable heat from somewhere, and thus, try as they might, they could not help but demand more of the delicious tea from Grafiya to drink and guzzle it down quickly like they were perpetually parched. No, it was more accurate to say that they were somehow addicted to the drink, though they did not know it yet. It was a mystery, but not to Grafiya. As she served them tea, she expertly added in cream which she'd advertised to the women from the start. Inside the small vial was a heady, divine concoction of Issei's most potent essence, mixed in with the honey of the devil and other sweetening ingredients. Issei's had certain powerful qualities that were apparent to her now. Part of it must be the work of the sacred gear that had made its way inside the boy, but it wasn't the full source of Issei's mysterious power. Grafiya had then tested his seed and had found it had the ability to produce certain effects on women. She'd observed it in herself, how she had grown fuller, her body had increased to match Issei's, her body had undergone physical changes, becoming more bodacious, as if to attract Issei further. But was also quite addictive, especially when imbibed in great amounts. Only a small treacherous part of Grafiya's mind acknowledged the fact that maybe that was how he'd ensnared her. But she cheerily shut that voice down. It didn't matter anymore. She'd been bound, body, heart and soul to her Issei. And pretty soon, these women would also be the same. But those intentions at hand, Grafiya sat there in the corner, nursing a small smile as she played the host to this little party. I must say this was quite a surprise. Has it really been that long since we've had tea together? Remarked Lady Phoenix. She had blonde hair tied in elegant curls and was the picture of a sophisticated lady devil. Surely you can't mean to say you would prefer we not meet? Grafiya said, raising a brow. Grafiya, dear, do ignore her, Venelana Gremory said next, waving a dismissing hand. The shapely woman had and held an excellent pair of mounds which were accentuated well by her elegant gown. She's as much pleased as I am for this opportunity. Though I must say, you've hit upon a most excellent potation, Grafiya. Wherever did you find it? She only offered them a small smile in response. She had to act carefully, particularly around these two experienced devils, who were used to the innocuous-seeming games of deception one could play even on tea time. They were sharp and ready to find a flaw or an attempt at lying, if Grafiya let them. For now, I beseech you all to refrain from insisting upon the revelation of this secret. Suffice it to say that the source is of most excellent character, capable of providing such unique and robust ingredients. How is it, Rias? And you, Miss Akeno? She pointed the question to the other two members of the party, who had hitherto remained silent since Grafiya had poured them tea. It was Venelana's daughter and Grafia's sister-in-law, the prodigy Rias Gremory, who'd already cultivated quite a respectable little peerage. She'd inherited much of her mother's tremendous assets, highlighted by long fiery red hair, a mark of the Gremory blood. By her side was the last guest, one Akeno Himejima, who was Rias' queen piece. Being a reincarnated, she was only here on Rias and by extension Venelana's sufferance. Subordinates would have typically been banned from partaking in the tea party. Grafiya didn't mind herself, as she found the girl quite a fascinating, luscious specimen, with well-defined curves and a pair of to beat everyone in the room. It tastes wonderful, my lady, Rias said smoothly. Yes, my lady, I echo Lady Rias' sentiment, Akeno said. However, did you manage to make one like this? Rias asked. Do you really like it, Rias? Grafiya asked, a sly teasing look on her face. Yes. Rias said, looking down with a blush. Grafiya almost laughed, it was always a hoot teasing the younger devil. Suffice to say certain ingredients in this mixture can be somewhat taxing to acquire. It required a certain amount of effort before the bases could form its origin. Grafiya rubbed her head, discreetly. Did it come from some new species of beast then? Rias asked, wholly oblivious to the implications that set in Grafia's mind. Yes, a most powerful, terrible beast, she said. One must take care to keep oneself sharp and ready, as one wrong move would spell the end, even for the most experienced of devils. I should know. She chuckled and felt a moist heat bloom in her nethers, something she couldn't control. Wow, it took my marshalling all my might to wrestle the relentless beast before it could be made to produce its sweet, delectable essence. Before too long I had it in a tight grip. There was such a mighty, titanic struggle that before long I was coated most thoroughly by its product. And quite so thoroughly. And it was only then that I could restrain the beast and squeeze down with my body as strongly as I was able. Ah. Poor beast. Too bad it's dead. Grafiya shrugged and winked. When did I say it was? Never in all my years have I tasted such a sublime combination of flavors. It is as potent as liquor. Lady Phoenix exclaimed. Are you sure you have not added a pinch of wine in here, Grafiya? You offer me such doubt, Lady Phoenix, and I would be offended if I were not aware of your attempt to steer the topic towards discovering the source of this excellent. Oh, but I simply must learn the recipe. Having tasted it once, it would be exceedingly cruel to deny us more, would it not, everyone? Why yes, I suppose so. Everyone, from Rias to Venelana, nodded. Good. It appeared Issei's that had been spiked into the tea still had its potent features. And no one had detected it, except perhaps as a sweet tingly feeling on their tongues that made them wish for more. All the same I will be sealed, for now, ladies. But there is yet more, do thank me for the foresight in seeing you would most definitely seek more. I shall ring for more biscuits, and in the meantime she poured a fresh batch of tea, then openly added Issei's. Soon enough the ladies here would have Issei's permeating their whole bodies and burning in their souls, a hungry void that yearned to be filled. And they would never know, not until they were every inch of his down their lovely little "let us have some more tea." Her suspicions had grown from mere fancy after a few meetings. Venelana hadn't survived this long among the devils of hell without acquiring a nose for the unusual, like the sixth sense mortals pledged to have. It was subtle, quite easily missed unless one were Grafia's close confidant. After all, a maid uniform was one of the better ways to hide certain seductive curves in the body if one were sure to add the requisite number of cuffs and ribbons and puffy sleeves. Seeing her friend's body physically change, as if some magic were mutating her in a way that would be easily missed, raised alarm bells in her mind, particularly when Grafia herself steadfastly did not allude to such changes. Underneath the hood, Grafiya seemed to have acquired more rounded, hanging like supple fruits, and her becoming more and more accentuated, making it easier for her husband to take hold of during. Frankly, Venelana would have recommended she buy another maid outfit, except that she knew full well Grafiya was as self-conscious about fashion as any proper devil. That implied several things, none of which reassured her. That, combined with her insistence on having tea parties practically every several days, was enough to make the normally reserved Venelana roll up her sleeves and investigate. And if she was lucky, she'd find the source of Grafiya's delicious tea. As she prepared to shadow Grafiya, she came upon a strange thought. Was it her imagination, or did her own clothes also feel like she'd grown a few more than they were made for? She certainly felt it, and other parts of her body felt like they were close to stretching the fabric. Perhaps the frequent tea parties were to blame. Great, now I have to do a bit more exercising, she thought ruefully. Venelana drew on the greatest magic she knew of when she finally began to shadow Grafiya. She went to the human realm, which was a surprise. She wondered what business her friend had in here. She watched a woman go to several places, seemingly wandering around openly in her maid outfit, another surprise, before heading inside one of the human houses. She stood outside, still invisible, and was hesitant to continue. This was a direct violation of a human's privacy, and devil protocol frowned on trespassing unless explicitly summoned or there was some dire need. After a while, she reasoned to herself that today was exactly the sort of dire need that required her to enter. With that resolve, she went inside the house and there found something that shocked her. Grafiya was making out with a child. A mortal child. She could sense its youth on its face alone and on the pure aura it exuded. She was so stunned by the scene unfolding that she just stood there. "Issei, I missed you so much," Grafiya whispered as the couple quickly stripped off each other's clothes. "Yeah, I missed you too, Grafiya-san," the boy replied. Venelana's eyes widened. What sort of human was this that Grafiya would so easily give away her name? The two didn't waste any time proceeding into the hot carnal process of which Venelana was all too familiar. The boy pressed Grafiya up against the wall as the latter's face made expression she hadn't thought she'd ever see on the serious devil. Grafiya bellowed like cattle being slaughtered. Venelana could only watch, mesmerized, as her friend uttered words, made, and acted so much in such a way that she'd never seen Grafiya do. Belatedly she recalled that she was cheating on her son. Such things weren't taboo in hell unless it came to the issue of inheritance. Her own husband, after all, maintained a steady which she was forced to manage, and yet she'd never expected Grafiya, that Grafiya who was always so no-nonsense, who was cool and calculating before agreeing to marry and settle down, that Grafiya Lucifuge whom one would never expect to act in such a way. Like some beast that was only too happy to be used only for purposes that only left coercion. Somehow this young mortal was not at all what he was. A wizard, perhaps, or some sort of creature that could beguile the mind of even a devil. Frowning, Venelana scrutinized the boy until she could recall his face by rote, then departed from the sounds of intense lovemaking. She had several options. She could confront Grafiya directly and attempt to dispel whatever magic compulsion had been placed on her. Or she'd just cut straight to the point. The power of destruction, her legacy, blazed within her. The poor mortal would never know what hit him. As she departed to return to hell, she missed a small drop of that. She also never noticed Grafiya's eyes light in her direction for just a millisecond, her smile lighting up in something like triumph, before her face slackened under the intense pleasure blossoming through her body as all 20-something. The next day, Issei was currently heading home, puzzling out why Grafiya had begged leave to bow out from meeting him that day. It wasn't like he was angry or anything, for he knew the maid devil was busy. But he sure would miss her. Maybe he'd try another mag, which he hadn't done in many days. But he knew that wouldn't help him after what he'd experienced for weeks. There was something quite unfulfilling now about doing the five-fingered slam all by his lonesome. Not when he was used to devil maid every night. He trudged on up to his room. Then he did a double take when he saw there was someone in it. It was yet another voluptuous woman, her hair, her body thick and luscious like Grafiya. Unlike his lover, though, this one was dressed provocatively, wearing only black lingerie, with thigh-high leggings, pantyhose, and garter belt underneath a nearly transparent nightie. Everything looked tight-fitting, as her thighs seemed about to form a fragile confinement. The woman shifted on the bed. "Be Grafiya-san?" he asked, wondering if it was another magic trick. She shook her head. "No. You may call me Venelana." Oh, what are you?" Issei closed his eyes. No woman would have been able to enter the house without his mother knowing so. "Are you a devil, Venelana-san?" She smiled coyly. But you seem rather smart, child." "Yes, I am a devil. And I am here to propose terms." "Terms?" She indicated her body. "See this body I present before you." Tantalizing, no? Her voice was enough to make Issei. "I shall allow you to touch me as much as you like if you will release Grafiya." "Our release?" The woman huffed, as if he'd said something stupid. "You do not know the powers you contend with, child." I do this for your sake as well, you know. Sorry, I still don't know what you're saying, Issei stammered. Did you want to talk with Grafiya-san? Venelana made an impatient sound. Fine. If you wish to be that stubborn about it, then have it your way. Would you like to make one, then? Huh? You clearly have confidence in your abilities. Therefore, if you are able to please me using only your hands, then I'll leave you alone to do whatever you will. But if not, then you must sever all your contact with Grafiya, including whatever enchantments you've placed over her. Thus, to that end, I shall allow you to do whatever you want with my body. Does that sound amenable to you? Well, sure I can make that bet, said Issei, though he was still confused. The woman thought he was doing what with Grafiya-san. The woman, Venelana, crossed her arms under her enormous arms. Very well, let the compact stand. Now come, child. Let us begin, but know that I am immune to any magic you wish to attempt. Under the contract, I am free to destroy you if you do try anything. So remember that fact. You really mean it? Issei said, smacking his as he ogled her body from head to toe. Frankly, he wasn't sure if Grafiya would approve, but here was a woman offering herself to him over some bet. How could he say no? Issei wasted no time and kneeled between. He traced all over her exposed skin with a delicate touch, then proceeded to peek aside. Venelana started rapidly blinking, her expression suddenly freezing. He then traced the warm cotton over her, marveling at their shape and size. He then briefly, before he swirled his hands over her. Venelana felt a slight tremble shake her. Damn it, what's going on? I've cast the best anti-arousal spells hell can muster. And yet with such brief touches she was suddenly on. Venelana felt a slight foreboding. Issei slid a finger in, pressing inside the outer folds of her with a gentle but firm manner. Venelana could not stifle the gasp that escaped her treacherous and hated its conspirators. Her legs which were apart unbidden, allowing him full access to her. He teased open the pink puffy folds of her nethers, revealing them for him to see. What are you? She said through a muffled voice. She could say nothing more when he pushed his finger further in, a few more inches. To her horror, she can feel the unmistakable sound of her arousal as fluids churned over his invading finger. Oblivious to her dismay, Issei pushed and twisted, coating his finger liberally with her moistness. Then he pulled out momentarily, spreading the fluids up over her vulva, then the hood of her. Her knees almost buckled at the electrifying sensation that brought. Venelana could feel stars burst behind her eyelids. She longed to the man, to punish him severely for this impudence, but she was bound by the contract. Bound by whatever mysterious quality made it so he could still pierce through her carefully laid protections, without even using any magic. He rubbed her, poking and flicking liberally at the bundle of nerves that assaulted Venelana's mind with speed. He has settled on a good rhythm, one that worked to wear away at the resistance in her, that built up a slow, burning heat in her mind. From her he descended, sliding fingers between her labial folds, then pushed them deep inside her, as if to gather up more of her free-flowing honey. Then his fingers danced over her labia, playing it like an instrument, while one finger flicked her clit at intervals. By the time either one has noticed, Venelana has been leaning her full weight on Issei, both of them were too into the foreplay to mind. Issei's her now, exploring the membrane of her and feeling for any sensitive areas. He found them easily, as Venelana betrayed her too, from side to side as she bit into her fingers and squealed. Then, having established a new rhythm there, he began sawing his hand in and out of her, while his thumb flicked her continuously from the repeated motions. Venelana was gasping and drooling, her body writhing, her proud cold exterior having long disappeared. She bucked and raised, as if trying to escape the pleasure from below. There was no denying the pools of fresh honey leaking out from her swollen puffy nethers. She was aroused and as can be. This can't be. No. Venelana cried. Something was coming. Her body was screaming for it. Release. Climax. Issei was relentless, his rhythm unending. Her was a burning nexus of, went his fingers as they buried deep into her tunnels. Venelana grabbed his shoulder and. The anticipation built up. Her whole body tensed, the gaps in her legs. Through it all Issei remained steadfast in her, no matter how much she had begun to and over him. Her nails dug in, drawing pain and a bit of blood. She wheezed and sighed, unable to muster anything more coherent than a few scattered broken words. Her body froze, like a puppet, all her muscles tensed to a point, then a moment later relaxing. A gush of fluids poured down Issei's arm. Boldly, the mortal child leaned in to taste and drink of her shame, her weakness, her loss. It was the privilege of the victor. A heavy haze settled in Venelana's mind, causing her to nearly faint from the explosion of sheer that still coursed through her like electricity. When she came to, she was sprawled on the bed and Issei was all over her body. She couldn't even muster the appropriate response. Her sobbing furnace. Issei paused, matching eyes with her. Don't you remember, Venelana-san? You lost the bet. Now I'm free to do whatever I want. As if to emphasize his point, he gave her a quick swipe, which made her arch her back from the sudden jolt of. Remember now? But that's not fair, she wanted to say, as tears streamed from her eyes. The feeling of defeat served to darken her even more, as if she'd been dipped in warm, sticky mud. Are you saying you won't keep your word? Issei said while on her. No. She'd rather die than discard her dignity as a devil. On the other hand, this indignity was a whole other thing entirely. No matter what happened, she would never give in. Her body and soul would remain her own. Do as you like. Just remember the dire consequences for defiling a devil. Hey, Issei quipped readily, as if he didn't care for such, before going straight. He caressed her gently, with the same care as if she were Grafiya, his lover. He ran circles all over her body, prodding at places where she knew his queen would like. And to his surprise, most of them matched with Venelana's body, making the devil shake her head in frustration, as pleased purrs rumbled in her, and her nethers wept a fresh new puddle. She could feel him then, the splendid behemoth. Hot and turgid against her skin, like a long iron poker just fresh from the coals. She'd only caught glimpses of it before, when it was railing her old friend deep in her, but now she saw the truth. It was huge. Inhumanly so. And that's supposed to go in. It did not occur to her mind, once, that neither she nor Issei had agreed to, specifically, but at this point she was already too far gone. Issei took a while getting ready, in a sense, though his manhood was hard and raring to go, and hers a burst dam of vaginal fluid. The two of them couldn't have been more ready if they tried. But Issei took his time, bringing her to orgasm again and again, using the fluids to mix with his spit in order to lather her up. He even used his member to stroke all over her body at times, like he was using a searing hot roller to paint her body with. It was like he was eating a meal at a 5-star restaurant, and he wanted to take his time savoring the body of the devil whom he'd beaten at a wager. This also had the unfortunate result of splitting Venelana in many shards, which then scattered into the winds as the mortal boy brought her she had not felt in her whole life. Finally, Issei was ready to claim what was his. He moved above her, sliding his enormous member into the comparatively smaller space between her. His was slick with air combined. She could feel its throbbing against the surface of her skin, a sure sign of his excitement to ravish her, to which her only reply was a dazed. Then her head bobbed up, eyes widening, when his member slowly began to part the folds of her, the sensation quite unlike anything she'd felt before. It was like a crude iron bar was being shoved into her, even if it was only his that breached the surface. She bit her in anticipation for the long, arduous process of her fleshy insides, struggling to adjust to his monstrous birth. She did not anticipate Issei's next move. He moved sideways, then her up so she was above him. Using his arms he kept her body slightly in the air, and when he was able to lie down in a good position, he aimed his upright member up at her sodden hole. Were she made to descend, he'd impale her without a second's thought. Confused, Venelana asked, what's going on? What are you? A mischievous light gleamed in Issei's eyes. This is for threatening my relationship with Grafiya-san. I hope you're ready. In that instant, Issei had let go, allowing gravity the opportunity to bring her body down on him. A moment later, he went deep up into her. In one fell swoop he had impaled her completely, with her now visibly bulging from his poking up inside it. After yelling, Venelana's expression for a moment of sheer bewilderment. Then tears poured from her eyes, spit trickled from the corners of her mouth. Her body, this way and that, like she was in a seizure. Her mind struggled to come to terms with a mix of sensations that had bushwhacked her from behind. In one the kid had gone deeper than the only other person. Her husband, she wheezed, then threw her head back as her bright devil wings erupted from her back in a display of color. Issei chuckled. I like that expression on you, Venelana-san. It's really close to what Grafiya-san looks like. Still gasping and shivering, she locked her gaze with him. What was that? Issei said playfully, lifting her up to move his member a few inches back, before slamming back up, causing her skin to ripple upwards, and her boobs swing like loose fruits. She yelped, a bit in pain and mostly from surprise. Her eyes were crossed, her tongue hanging out and dripping sticky streams of drool down on his body. She struggled, scrabbling for his body before squeezing his abdomen with her hands. You little, she said, through gritted teeth, her eyes still wildly unfocused. Think you've won? I already did, you know, technically. In response, her vaginal walls clamped down tighter, or made an attempt to, even if it was currently overwhelmed by Issei's mass. Still, the sensation was not lost to Issei, who groaned appreciatively. I've many years more experience than you, child, Venelana wheezed. She straightened up, then bent her, as if she were squatting on Issei like a. Her wings flapped and tensed. You know not who you defy. Issei grinned. Alright. Show me what you got, devil lady. As if to emphasize his point, he arched backward and brought him up to slam into her once more. Venelana roared in reply, such an unladylike thing to do, and making her seem like a beast being. She gathered up her strength, tensed her, then pushed herself upward, her lower mouth straining over the fore. She could completely clear his slam back down, impaling herself willingly with nothing but a small grunt. Issei, because he felt such kissing his member as she struggled. Venelana rose again, repeating her previous motion, then slammed back down, slapping loudly against his. The bed started squeaking as Venelana swung her up and down like a. Her fervor, like an engine, had a rhythm surge, such that she could spit out his monster in close to a second's time. Her eyes had a wild, defiant look on them as she took every inch of him every couple of seconds. Issei, for his part, was delighted. She looked so damned eager to his within her depths. Then there was the fact that her actions made it seem like 1,000 hot, writhing tongues were swirling all over his, which then added to the wonder of seeing this grade A woman with a smoking hot body bounce and above him, her and inviting, which collected into one continuous stream of for Issei's mind. He said next. But can you do it without using your arms? Go on, raise your arms, place your hands behind your neck. Ha! She cried. That is easily done, and so she did, raising her arms and showing off her wiggling in all their glory, along with the sight of her sweaty neck and collarbone and underarms, each dropped down before whisking away in her desperate grinding motions. It soon became apparent that Venelana's defiance would not last long. After all, each time she slammed down fully on his crotch, causing a loud thump, she snagged on his burly, sending constant tingles of pleasure to her brain. Then there were Issei's own contributions, where he twisted and shifted his in tune with her up and down movements, causing each lover to feel novel sensations with every impalement. They gave, they received, they actively worked together to as much pleasure as they could get away with. Again and again he sought into her, again and again she choked around him. Their loud coupling was charged as if from electricity, greedily drinking from the L of each offered freely to the other. The area below Issei's drenched in their mutual fluids. When it came for Venelana, she came. Loud. Strong. Gushing. Like a machine suddenly going haywire, her body convulsed, Venelana squealed and keened, before her body finally succumbed, collapsing against his in an. As if on cue, Issei's curled, as his mass tightened. Even as he continued to move to massage Venelana, he seized him like a chilly wind. He sheathed fully before the first of a mighty serving of white spunk erupted, causing the skin of her to ripple visibly with every. Issei sighed as his muscles relaxed, his body now given over fully to the work of this female he'd acquired. Though it took a long while to travel through the long shaft, each serving escaped his glands. Now overflowing, the rest of the sideward, down the openings made in the, and coats the walls of. Already Issei can feel the warmth of his, sliding down its length to start right outside. After a while, Issei's was satisfied, causing him to leave her with a, and tent. It didn't take long for a river of his to escape, at the base of her like a water source. Issei patted the unconscious Venelana's head fondly. She did well, even if she acted the way she did for much of it. That didn't stop Issei from feeling quite a bit suspicious towards her. Still, that did explain Grafiya-san's weird behavior earlier today. Had she thought something like this would happen? Gently, he flipped the dozing Venelana onto her back. He was still and primed, ready for many more. If there was one thing he liked about this sacred gear or whatever that Grafiya said he had, it was that he had an almost unlimited bounty of stamina to draw from. And that was plain awesome. Thus, without further ado, he daubed his hands with her still and began her rear entrance. He wondered how she would feel compared to Grafiya. He would certainly enjoy exploring every inch of Venelana's body from "this must be what heaven is like," Venelana thought, as her consciousness floated on a cloud of white. Just never-ending bliss. She didn't know how long she'd spent in that heavenly realm. But ever so often she could feel another wave of bliss crash into her, like a sudden strong, turning her whole self into a writhing storm of, before. Yet another wave came. This time, though, she opened her eyes and found her body in the grip of a devastating fire. A whine escaped her, after which she coughed and discovered further that the familiar taste in her was actually drying. She, and felt of that salty essence leisurely slide down her. The source of the burning through her was of course her treacherousness. But there was something else there, the sensation of something or someone doing its damnedest to stimulate her nethers. She looked down and saw a bob of grey hair. "Grafiya, you're up, Venelana," Grafiya said pleasantly, as if they were yet again meeting over tea. She lifted her head and Venelana could see her and chin was drenched in her. Grafiya. "My apologies, I was too busy drinking Issei's out of you to notice. I'd wanted to drink it out of you before you woke, but why are you?" Venelana still feeling quite weak, like she was made of lead. Grafiya made a point over her, producing a hiss from her. "Issei said you were pretty gutsy to do that. Of course, the effort of taking his whole length on your own terms pretty quickly. But that was still impressive. Not even I can do that, Venelana. So, thanks and congratulations are perhaps in order, I guess." The clouds seemed to have settled all around them. Her head, as the memories came rushing back. "I can't believe I did that." Grafia's eyes were alight with mischief, as if she was thoroughly enjoying Venelana's discomfort. "Oh, by the way, Issei had to keep you while you were out. That explains why. Well, here, have a look." and Venelana's eyes were drawn to a mirror Grafiya had produced, whereupon she showed. Her two gaped wide, as if some unknown creature had burrowed them, leaving them in a wide open state. No, scratch that, she knew what had punched into her, and she now knew why she felt like she couldn't. It also explained the faint burning in the back of her. Fresh, bubbling white continued to burble out from the opening, out like white from a shattered dam. Grafiya idly caressed the on Venelana's, a sign not of pregnancy, but of the gallons of literally fed into each of the ladders. Her whole body was saturated in it, a fact which, she realized with a start, didn't actually sound that bad. She felt safe, like she was being embraced by a superior being, bathing in his intoxicating presence like it was the sweetest of nectars. No. She thought. This isn't. Are you actually still worried about this? Well, don't you worry, I've got just the magic for it, my dear Venelana. Grafiya grinned and snapped her. In that instant, both of them sealed up, as if they'd never had Issei's monstrous. Oh, but of course Grafiya patted her belly pointedly causing it to wriggle like. The magic was actually less about healing, and more on sealing all the and preventing more from out. Both of them knew it. Both of them also knew to dispel it by causing another. By Grafiya's hungry eyes, she wanted to be the one to dispel it. Or shall we let Issei do it? She said aloud. What do you think, Issei? She asked, and only then did Venelana realize that the mortal boy was actually still there in the room, his profile dominated by his that stood upright and ready to strike once more. No. Venelana shouted. In her distress she exploded in a font of magic, fleeing through vast miles to teleport right back into the depths of hell. She reappeared in her safe place, then stumbled onto the ground, her body still clumsy from all that. From there she half crawled and half walked, her belly making her look like she was pregnant for all of 9 months, a natural side effect of her weight. Home? Yes. She had returned home. Where she should be safe. But she should return to a safer place. Safer than this. Her inner, where she could start the process of recovery. Where she could start to forget about today's events, where she could forget about his touch, or the hot addictive taste of his on her, of the feel of his burly, manly showing her how goody was she of the drool that had gathered there. Focus. I need to, mother. Oh no. She looked to the side and saw something that made the pit grow. Rias. What are you doing here? Her daughter stood there, her long hair blazing red. The one thing she did not want to show her daughter was this. To be caught in the corridor wearing only the skimpiest of lingerie, with a belly large enough to suspect pregnancy. Despair gripped her, then despair, and an overwhelming sense of shame. The worst part of it was the look on Ria's eyes. It was like she was looking at something so thoroughly alien that Venelana could think of nothing better than to melt down there on the spot. Fortunately, help came, however dubious the source. Grafiya came sauntering up from behind, surprising the two of them. She was clad in her maid's uniform, yet Venelana could smell the funky scent from her. Greetings, Rias. Don't mind your mother, we had just been off to see the source of that you were so curious about. Grafiya. Rias said, voice trembling. I don't understand. And the answer is this, Grafiya said, moving closer, before she surprised both Venelana and her daughter, by seizing the latter's shoulders and drawing her into a deep "What is this taste?" Rias said, after pushing the maid away. She wiped her mouth, and her face looked uneasy. This is it seems so raw and powerful. Words cannot truly describe it now, can't it? Grafiya said, glancing at Venelana pointedly. For her part, Venelana couldn't help but feel anguish at the thoughtful blush that came onto her daughter's cheeks. Excuse me. Rias said, dashing away and disappearing into her room. Rias. Venelana shouted, to no avail. Grafiya sashayed to her side and helped her stand upright, especially now that her knees threatened to give way under her. I know you saw what I saw, Grafiya whispered. Imagine that. Your own daughter, the beautiful talented Rias, becomes a willing slave to Issei, just like me. Just like you. I am no, she declared, then yelped when Grafiya leaned into her, suffocating her complaints with that swirled and drank of the drying inside her. Wonderful taste of Issei's, Grafiya said with a smack of her. She pushed at Venelana's shoulder, and the latter felt a teleportation spell engulf the both of them. What are you? Venelana blinked and found that they had returned to Issei's room, where the boy sat on the edge of the bed facing them. He idly pumped his. Grafiya sauntered towards him, peeling away her clothes with a snap of her fingers. She kneeled down, allowing Issei to lay his member down on her silvery hair. She then glanced over her shoulder. By all means, leave if you want to, Venelana. Nothing's stopping you. Just remember, Issei shall wait for however long it takes. He's patient. And with that Grafiya began at the underside of Issei's members. For a long time, she just stood there, flushed, breathing in fast. Her body trembled, shivering from a cold the other occupants in the room didn't feel. The only sounds she heard were her own hurried breathing, the roar of her heartbeat in her ears, and the hot, desperate service that Grafiya offered for her so-called Issei. Issei. That word actually didn't sound all that bad. Issei. To be taken so harshly by that monstrous, riding along on his brutish advances. Issei. To drink water. I take it that's your answer, Venelana? Grafiya asked. She stirred and discovered that she'd suffered a small injury. That dispelled the little magic Grafiya had placed on her nethers, causing a fresh flood of his to spill between her. Venelana, her suddenly dry. Curse her body for deciding without her consent. But there was nothing else she could do. Then she took a step forward and joined Grafiya's side. Her lover, not Issei, laid his steaming on top of her head, blessing her with his favor. She glanced sideways at Grafiya, who nodded. Venelana opened the door. By the end of it, she did not call him Issei, like Grafiya. But she was as loyal a lover as the maid. That was quick to grow within her, too. The odds of conception were noticeably high when one was being practically every day and then with such overwhelming quantities of. Issei certainly had to match the both of them, even at the same time. Venelana proved to be just as insatiable as Grafiya and was still the only one able to summon the strength to take Issei from to hilt without outright fainting. The new favorite, though, was riding the which was exactly as it sounded. It was especially nice to do in the bathroom where the skin was appropriate. Friction caused by the intensity of their bodies was enough to produce an. Of course, in time, Venelana would come to see the wisdom of adding her daughter to the peerage. Issei had a maid, now a lover. It was then fitting that her new king should have a girlfriend. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. See you in the next video. Goodbye.